Hello, I'm Nima Rajan. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a benefit for fish harvesters hit financially by the COVID-19 crisis. The fish harvesters benefit will provide 75% of lost revenue, up to $10,000 for harvesters who have had a 25% drop in income. The government will also give non-repayable grants of $10,000 for fish harvesters who own their own business. The support is expected to cost the government about $470 million. Environment Minister Jonathan Wilkinson says national parks will resume some operations in June. Minister Wilkinson says some trails, day use areas, green spaces, and recreational boating will be available starting June 1st at national parks, historic sites and waterways, and national marine conservation areas. Camping in parks will remain off limits at least until June 21st, when the federal government will reassess whether it should be allowed. Statistics Canada reports manufacturing sales plunged 9.2% to $50.8 billion in March as factories shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic or faced sharply lower demand. The agency says it was the biggest percentage drop since December 2008, when the economy was gripped by the financial crisis. Sales fell in 17 of 21 industries, led by the transportation equipment and petroleum and coal product industries. However, sales were up in food, paper, as well as the beverage and tobacco industries. Stores and daycares are being allowed to reopen across Alberta today, while some other businesses still face restrictions. Premier Jason Kenney says Alberta's COVID-19 numbers have been decreasing, but Calgary and Brooks are home to 3/4 of the active cases, so dine-in restaurants or hair salons won't be open there until May 25th. Restaurants can only open in the rest of the province at half capacity, and there is still a 15-person limit on public gatherings. Data released by city officials shows as of last night, one of Montreal's poorest neighborhoods has over 1,850 COVID-19 cases, which is more than double the city's average. Community advocates want to know why more isn't being done to protect those vulnerable residents in lower-income neighborhoods, many of whom work in healthcare and other essential services. Community organizations say those neighborhoods have been hit hard by the virus due to crowded living conditions. Communities along the Canada-U.S. border have seen some families torn apart by the COVID-19 restrictions that have banned non-essential travel across the international line. The mayor of Windsor says his Ontario city has long thought of Detroit as an extension of Windsor's backyard, with family arrangements, including child custody agreements, built on that sentiment. He says residents in both cities have arranged lives, careers, or businesses around the idea that they, their loved ones, or customers could easily and quickly move between the two countries. Increased use of hand sanitizer and disinfectant is crucial in the fight against COVID-19, but it could end up hampering Canada's battle against superbugs. Some experts worry that efforts to destroy the COVID-19 virus could actually drive some bacteria to become more resistant. McMaster University's Dr. Jerry Wright says he is concerned that the use of drugs during the pandemic could also have an effect. He says secondary bacterial infections are common in patients with severe upper respiratory symptoms, which in turn leads to an increased use of antibiotics and an increase in antimicrobial resistance. A gun control advocacy group is welcoming Ottawa's recent move to ban assault-style weapons, but says more needs to be done. The group Police Souvient says it is concerned about the government's proposed buyback program. In a letter to Public Safety Minister Bill Blair, the group suggests that each weapon that remains in private hands constitutes a risk. The Trudeau government's buyback program would see current owners get cash for turning in their now banned weapons, but allows other owners to keep the same firearms through a grandfathering process, which is yet to be worked out. Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and representatives from Ottawa and Victoria are set to come together today and sign a memorandum of understanding that ended protests and blockades by First Nations across the country. The hereditary chiefs oppose the construction of a coastal GasLink pipeline through their territory. While this agreement recognizes their rights and title, the chiefs say it has no impact on the pipeline. Elected chiefs of the First Nations say they should have been involved in the negotiations and are urging rejection of the agreement. Nearly 3 million laid-off workers applied for U.S. unemployment benefits last week as the viral outbreak led more companies to slash jobs, even though most states have begun to let some businesses reopen under some restrictions. Roughly 36 million people have now filed for jobless aid in the 2 months since the coronavirus first forced millions of businesses to close their doors and shrink their workforces, according to the Labor Department on Thursday. Still, the number of first-time applications has now declined for 6 straight weeks, suggesting that a dwindling number of companies are reducing their payrolls. The European Medicines Agency says in a best-case scenario, a COVID-19 vaccine could be approved in early 2021. Citing ongoing clinical trials, the head of the European regulator's vaccines department says there could be licensed drugs to treat the novel coronavirus before this summer. He says if some of the current vaccines being tested prove to be effective, they could be licensed in the beginning of next year. A strong typhoon slammed into the eastern Philippines today after authorities evacuated tens of thousands of people while trying to avoid the virus risks of overcrowding emergency shelters. Typhoon Vongfong saw winds of 150 kilometers per hour and is forecasted to move across densely populated eastern provinces and cities. Governors say social distancing will be nearly impossible in emergency shelters. Some shelters are now serving as quarantine facilities, and they may have to be turned back into emergency storm shelters. Well, the city of Vancouver has helped to create a new map illustrating more than 50 resources for residents who need access to free or low-cost food as the COVID-19 pandemic wears on. The city says the map is the brainchild of Steph Limich, a visual artist and entrepreneur with knowledge of grassroots food security responses. It says the map released yesterday builds on Ms. Limich's map and a pre-COVID food asset map from Vancouver Coastal Health to provide up-to-date information about low-cost food programs throughout the city. Well, that'll do it for today's news update. I'm Nima Rajan. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.